If he never changes and this thing stays like this, can you cope with this long term?
People can be so far apart sometimes, and sometimes finding each other might be just what they need to move each other's lives forward. So do you think there's a space for that, and can we talk about how painful that process would most likely be for those individuals, and what they should actually, you know um what they should actually think about when they are in that process or going into that process?
Yeah. Is there a space for it? The answer is yes. There's nothing impossible under the sun. You see relationships of people who are from totally different backgrounds and they make it work. But sometimes what they don't tell you is the cost to make it work. The cost to people's ego, the cost to people's pride, the cost to wanting to do things in a specific way when there can be a better way. There is usually a price attached to people bringing, even when you are from similar backgrounds, there is still a price to pay of a merging of lives. Even when you are both different in personalities, there is a middle ground where you can both be, because a difference in personality isn't necessarily a bad thing. Because if you come together and play to each other's strengths and then have shared goals, shared values, and shared interests, those are three key things that must already be there. If you have those three things anyway, you can play to each other's strengths, but you have to be able to see together. It's why, it's almost like you have to be able to say, okay, you're different, I'm different. And this is something that is real. My husband and I are fundamentally different. Like, we're so different that it was one of the initial struggles we had as a couple because we're so different, you know. But eventually, first of all, there has to be a place of acceptance of that difference, and that difference is a gift to the relationship, not a burden. If you think of it from that perspective, that this is a gift, this is how this person is wired, and actually it plays out in our, it plays out in our relationship for good, you are more likely to benefit from it. You are more likely to benefit from that difference. And a difference of background can either be a blessing or a curse, depending on the people. It always comes back to the people. Is my background going to be a blessing or a curse to this relationship? You grew up in a single household, a single parent household. That can be a blessing and a curse depending on the way that you choose to spin it. And it's up to each person to decide that, depending on obviously what you also want for the relationship that you're in. If you know that you want to make your relationship work, you can take that, whatever seems like a negative to somebody else, and still spin it into a positive. It is not impossible for two people from different backgrounds to come together and have a great relationship, but there will be a price to pay, and they must already have shared values, shared goals, and shared interests. Because those are the things that make relationships work anyway. Those are the things that make relationships work. And then there must be a willingness to make the relationship work. And I don't mean sign up for punishment. It's different. Nobody is a pet project. Everybody is a human being. Each human being has to decide if they want to be a better person or not. And sometimes women were very guilty of this. We see a man and he becomes our pet project. I want to change him. Here's the truth: you cannot change anybody unless the person wants to change in themselves. Because there's only so much and only so long by which you can carry that person before eventually you will get tired. You are human. You will get tired. And you will get tired of carrying their excesses. You will get tired. This is conversations that women have that we don't necessarily sometimes even post on social media. Women that are in marriages where the man showed them from the very beginning that he was irresponsible. But they were like, oh no, I want to be in a relationship so badly. It's okay. I'll bear the responsibility. And then they are now in the marriage 2 years, 3 years. There's something that a friend shared with me that I was sharing with a group of women recently. And it was that don't start what you cannot continue and not complain about. Don't start something that you will not do long term and not complain about. If you know you will eventually complain, and sometimes we wear rose tinted, like, oh, I won't complain. But the truth is, can you do this long term? Can you do this for the next 5, 10, 15 years? You know, when women come to me and they say, oh, I'm not sure, there's this quality about the man, I'm not sure about it. The question I always have to them is, if he never changes and this thing stays like this, can you cope with this long term? And I don't think people tend to ask themselves that question. So when they come to me and I ask them that question, is yes, it's a closed question, but it's a very direct question. Can you handle this long term? It's a yes or no. Because most of us, if we're honest with ourselves, can't handle certain things. But is it possible to see someone from a different background and come together? Yes. My husband is from a totally different background, totally different culture to me, totally different background and upbringing to me. But the reason why we're making it work is because we're taking time to sit and look at our own unit, and we already have shared values, we already have shared goals, we already have shared interests. Now we're now looking at it and saying, okay, so this thing that we've seen that's a difference between the two of us, how can we make it work? Whose own probably is even better, or is there even a neutral way that will work for both of us? Because sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean I have to follow his way or he has to follow my way. We can find a new way. This happened for us like with Christmas celebrations. He was used to having loads of family members and, big family Christmases. I was used to having nuclear family Christmases. We're coming from two different places. And we said, you know what? Instead of this thing becoming an issue, what would work best for us? Can we create our own new family Christmas traditions? It's a simple example, but it's an example where we forget that side and forget that side. What works for this one today, here and now, and going forward? So that way we now say, okay, fine. Maybe this year we'll spend it with your family. Next year we'll spend it with her family, and the year after we will do something just for us and our kids. You are suddenly creating new things. And with relationships, whether you are from different backgrounds or even from similar backgrounds, the whole essence is to create something for your unit. I keep saying it, it's your unit. Yes, there are influences from your parents and all these other people, but at the end of the day, you are the one living in the reality of that relationship. Make it work for you, not based on what other people have told you.